Michael moved quickly through the Brooklyn subway station crowd, clutching his worn bag while searching for his coffee. His routine was simple. Each morning, he bought a bagel and coffee from the same vendor, exchanged a quick greeting, and headed to Manhattan to visit an old friend. But today, he stopped short. By the coffee stand sat a small, scruffy dog, watching him intently. The dog didn't bark or beg. It simply stared at him with a quiet, patient gaze that seemed to reach his core. Michael tried to look away, but he couldn't shake it. Sighing, he reached into his bag, pulled out a piece of his bagel, and crouched down, offering it. The dog cautiously approached, sniffed, and quickly devoured it. Michael watched, intrigued. Without a word, he stood up and continued toward the subway, expecting the dog to wander off. But as he walked, he noticed it following him at a safe distance, never losing sight of him. When he reached the subway entrance, he stopped and turned. "This is where we part ways, buddy," he murmured, hoping it would understand. But the dog simply sat, watching him with the same calm gaze. Michael chuckled softly and headed down the stairs. Throughout the ride, he couldn't stop thinking about the dog's eyes. When he returned to the station at the end of the day, he looked up instinctively, and there it was, waiting by the entrance, wagging its tail, as if it had waited all day just to see him. Michael's heart skipped, but he didn't say a word. He started walking home, and the dog followed without hesitation. At his door, he looked down, feeling an unusual sense of connection. Opening the door, he gestured for it to come inside. The dog crossed the threshold quietly, inspecting the place. That night, Michael watched it curl up on an old blanket he'd set out. He hadn't planned on adopting anyone, much less a stray, but somehow, it felt right. As the dog slept, he murmured, "I'll call you Star." Soon, people began to notice the peculiar pair. Michael, a quiet man with a routine, and Star, the loyal dog who never left him. Star quickly became a favorite in the neighborhood. Kids would pet her, and vendors occasionally left her little treats. People found her loyalty heartwarming. Every morning, Star would wait beside Michael as he drank his coffee, then accompany him to the subway entrance. Michael would say a quick goodbye, and Star would remain there until he returned later in the day. Upon seeing him again each evening, she'd greet him with a gentle tail wag, as if no time had passed at all. Michael hadn't expected this change. Since losing his wife years ago, he had grown accustomed to loneliness, accepting it as a part of his life. But now, each day felt different, filled with the knowledge that someone was waiting for him, someone who wouldn't leave. Star had become a reminder of genuine connection, a silent yet constant presence that didn't need words. Walking home each evening, Michael felt his solitude lifting, replaced by the warmth of Star's companionship. One afternoon, as they made their way home, Michael stopped at the subway entrance and looked at Star, who looked back at him with steady, trusting eyes. It felt as if she'd always been there, as if his life had been incomplete until they crossed paths. One chilly morning, Michael left home feeling an unusual ache in his chest. "Just tired," he reassured himself as he went about his usual routine. At the coffee stand, Star sat by his feet, as always, her quiet presence comforting him. He greeted the neighbors, sipped his coffee, and walked to the subway entrance, Star by his side. Before descending the stairs, he paused to give her a gentle pat on the head, appreciating her calm patience. But that evening, Michael didn't return. Star, as usual, sat waiting by the subway entrance. As people came and went, she stayed motionless, her eyes fixed on the spot where Michael would normally appear. Hours passed and night fell, yet Star did not move. Concerned vendors noticed her still there, watching as the night deepened, but no one dared approach. By morning, the neighborhood began to buzz with quiet whispers. The news spread. Michael had suffered a sudden heart attack and hadn't survived. The neighbors, now solemn, shared their condolences and tried to approach Star. They offered her food and water, but she wouldn't move, keeping her gaze on the subway entrance as if Michael would appear any moment. Days passed, and Star remained there. Neighbors did their best to care for her, realizing that she wouldn't leave her spot. The once busy subway entrance now had a silent, steady presence. Star had become a fixture, a loyal guardian of the place where she'd last seen her friend. Her steadfast weight touched everyone who passed, her small form embodying a silent, unbreakable promise to Michael. As the days turned into weeks, Star's presence at the subway entrance became legendary in the neighborhood. Neighbors felt a mix of admiration and sorrow for the small dog, waiting so patiently day after day. Children would stop by to pet her gently, and vendors left small scraps of food, though Star barely acknowledged them. For her, nothing mattered but watching the spot where she'd last seen Michael, as if her loyalty alone could bring him back. Word of Star's dedication spread quickly beyond the neighborhood. Soon, people from other parts of the city came to see her, to witness for themselves the little dog's unwavering vigil. Local newspapers picked up her story, dubbing her the loyal subway dog, and stories of her faithfulness made their way onto social media. Some visitors offered to adopt Star, moved by her devotion, but she refused to budge from her place. Her loyalty was to one person, and she wouldn't leave the spot where she'd last felt his presence. Yet not everyone felt the same tenderness toward her. As Star's story grew, so did complaints, with some claiming she was a distraction or even a nuisance at the station's busy entrance. Eventually, subway authorities received enough reports to act. One morning, a few employees arrived with orders to remove her, but the neighborhood was ready. As soon as vendors and residents saw what was happening, they rallied to her defense, standing between Star and the employees. "She's no bother. She's part of our community," one vendor argued, a sentiment that others echoed passionately. Confused by the commotion, Star stayed rooted in her spot, eyes fixed and calm, unaware of the tension around her. The neighborhood's protests soon spread, with supporters even writing letters to officials, urging them to let Star stay. News outlets picked up on the controversy, and public sympathy quickly grew for the loyal dog. With mounting pressure, subway authorities finally relented, allowing her to remain. Star had become more than just a dog. She was a symbol of loyalty and connection, a silent guardian of the memory she held so dearly. And everyone who encountered her left with a reminder of the powerful, unbreakable bond she shared with Michael. After Star's place was secured at the subway, a man appeared, claiming to be Michael's old friend. He told locals he wanted to take Star home, offering her a permanent place to live. But some neighbors were wary, suspecting he sought attention or doubting Star would be happy anywhere but here, waiting where she'd last seen Michael. The man tried a few times to take her, but each attempt ended the same. Star wouldn't go. Her loyalty was firm. She always returned to her spot by the subway entrance, watching as if Michael might reappear. Neighbors admired her devotion, mixed with a quiet sorrow for the little dog's endless vigil. One evening after another attempt failed, a note appeared near the coffee stand Michael used to visit. "Star doesn't need another home. Her home is here, where her loyalty is remembered every day." The message touched everyone who read it, strengthening the bond between Star and the neighborhood that had come to care for her so deeply. As weeks turned to months, Star's story spread across the city. People came from across New York to witness the little dog who refused to leave her spot. Star became a quiet symbol, her silent weight reminding everyone of loyalty and friendship. Each visitor felt inspired, moved by the sight of this small, loyal dog who had given her heart so completely. The neighborhood came together to care for her, offering food, water, and kind words. Star was no longer just a stray. She had become part of their lives, a reminder of the bonds that connect us. Soon, all who knew her accepted that Star's place was here, at the subway, holding on to the memory of her friend.